Okay, kids, in this video we're going to be talking about the subjunctive in nominal clauses, specifically the letters W, E, I, and G from the acronym wedding, which was discussed in the previous video. In this video we will be going through these four letters of wedding, W, E, I, and G, and explaining which types of verbs require the subjunctive. As a quick reminder from the previous video, remember in our theory of the subjunctive that all our sentences will be set up with the first clause, followed by a K, followed by the second clause. The first clause will always be in the indicative tense, meaning present, preterite, imperfect, future, or conditional, whereas the second clause may require the subjunctive, depending upon what the first clause says. If the first clause has something to do with W, E, I, or G, which will be explained in the subsequent slides, then we will use the subjunctive in the second clause. The letter W stands for wishes, wills, and wants. We use the subjunctive in the dependent or second clause when the verb in the first or independent clause indicates a wish, a recommendation, a suggestion, a command, or an imposition of will. Some of the verbs that fall into this group are aconsejar, decir, dejar, desear, esperar, exigir, mandar, pedir, permitir, preferir, prohibir, querer, recomendar, rogar, o sugerir. All of these verbs show either a wish, a recommendation, a suggestion, a command, or an imposition of will. For instance, if you're using the verb exigir, you are demanding that someone do something. Therefore, you are commanding them or imposing your will on them. So, if you see one of these verbs in the first part of the sentence, and the sentence contains all the other necessary elements from the four essential questions, then you will use the subjunctive in the second part of the sentence. There are some examples on the next slide. These are three examples that demonstrate some verbs that are found in the W group. Fill in the blanks with either the subjunctive or the infinitive if necessary. Remember to use your four essential questions. You can pause this slide and then check your answers when done. Okay, these are the answers to these questions. Let's go through them together. Yo te recomiendo que tú eches plástico en el reciclaje. Four essential questions. Do I have a subjunctive setup? Yes. I have a verb from the W group, recomendar. Do I have a K? Yes. Do I have a subject change? I have yo in the first clause, to in the second clause. Remember, this is the first clause, everything before the K. This is the second clause, everything after the K. So I have yes, yes, and yes. What tense is my first part of the sentence in? It's in the present tense, so therefore I need the present of the subjunctive here. Sentence 2. Ellos desean jugar en la nieve. Do I have a subjunctive setup? Yes, I do. I have a verb from the W group, desear, to desire. Do I have a K? No. That means I stop my four essential questions. If I do not have a K, I leave the verb in the infinitive. They desire to play in the snow. Number 3. Mi mamá mandó que yo comiera todas mis verduras cuando era niño. Do I have a subjunctive setup? Yes, I have mandar from the W group. Do I have a K? Yes. Do I have two different subjects between the two clauses? Yes. Mi mamá. Yo. Yes. What tense is the first part of the sentence in? It is in the preterite, so according to the sequence of tenses, I need the past subjunctive here, so that makes my answer comiera. The E group. E stands for emotions. We use the subjunctive in the second clause if the verb in the first clause conveys an emotion or a feeling, and we're still following the four essential questions. Some typical verbs in this group would be alegrarse, enojarse, lamentar, sentir, sorprenderse, temer, that is not a typo, it's temer, not tener, it means to fear, and a star plus an emotion. We can also use ser plus an adjective plus a K. Some of the adjectives that might go in that blank would be agradable, o curioso, o estupendo, extraño, normal, vergonzoso, which means shameful, extraño means strange, by the way, natural, increíble, and sorprendente. All of these adjectives indicate an emotion. So when they're followed by ser, a conjugation of ser, plus a K, those will be part of the E group, and they will require the subjunctive afterwards. Here are some examples from the E group. Again, follow your four essential questions. Check your answers by hitting pause on the video, and you can start the video up again when you're done. Okay, again, here are your answers for these particular questions. Number 1, fue sorprendente que ellos salieron temprano. Do I have a subjunctive setup? Yes, I have something from the E group. Do I have a K? Yes, I do. Do I have two different subjects? Yes, it. It was surprising that. So it, and then ellos, two different subjects. What tense is the first part of the sentence in? It's in preterite, so now I need past subjunctive. Number 2, es curioso vivir en un submarino amarillo. Do I have a subjunctive setup? Yes, I have curioso. Do I have a K? I do not. So I'm going to stop my process. When I do not have a K, we use the infinitive, vivir. It's curious to live in a yellow submarine. Finally, te enojas que nosotros vayamos a la fiesta sin ti. Do I have a subjunctive setup? Yes, I have the verb enojarse, an emotional verb. Do I have a K? Yes. Do I have two different subjects? Yes. Two, and then nosotros. What tense is the first part of the sentence in? It's in present, so that means we need present subjunctive, vayamos. You were angry that we went to the party without you. This is a classic example of why we don't want to translate perfectly from English to Spanish, because if we did, you were angry that we went to the party without you, we would put this verb in the preterite. But it does not belong in the preterite, it belongs in the subjunctive in Spanish, because everything about the sentence indicates that the subjunctive is needed based on the 4 essential questions. The I from wedding stands for an impersonal expression. An impersonal expression is an expression whose subject is it, structured as ser in the third person singular plus an adjective plus K, like es blank K, or fue blank K, será blank K. These are followed by the subjunctive in the second clause when their nature indicates something from wedding. So when the nature of the personal expression indicates a wish, a will, a want, an emotion, a doubt, a disbelief, or a denial of something, you will use the subjunctive in the second part of the sentence, as it explains in this cropped image that I have here. These are just some examples of impersonal expressions. There are obviously a lot more, but es agradable, es bueno, es curioso, es dudoso, es esencial, so on and so forth, es triste, que, etc. So, ser plus an adjective plus K, where ser is conjugated in the third person singular, where the subject is it. As long as that the nature of the impersonal expression indicates something from wedding, you will use the subjunctive subsequently. These are some more examples for you to try from the I group, so try them, hit pause, and then check your answers. Okay, again, your answers. Personal expression, será importante, have a subjunctive setup, have a K, 2 different subjects. Remember, the subject of all these is it, and then you. This is in the future tense, so I'm going to use present subjunctive. It will be important that you do your homework this year. This one, do I have a subjunctive setup? Yes, I have an impersonal expression. Do I have a K? No, I do not. So I stop my 4 questions, and I go with the verb in the infinitive. It's sad not to have grandparents that are alive. And then lastly, fue necesario que leyera este libro. Do I have a subjunctive setup? Yes, I have an impersonal expression. Do I have a K? Yes, I do. 2 different subjects. Yes, it, and then yo. And what tense is the first part of the sentence in? It's in the preterite, so I need the past subjunctive, leyera. The last slide for this presentation on subjunctive with nominal clauses for the letters W, E, I, and G is the letter G, and it stands for God. And the expression for God in Spanish is ojalá que, and it means I hope to God that. Ojalá que comes from the Arabic influence on the Spanish language, as the Moors, or the Arab people, had control of Spain for about 780 years, from the year 711 to 1492. And one of the remnants that they left behind were influences on the linguistics of the language. The Moorish god, or the Arab god, was Allah. So this is a contracted expression, O Allah, ojalá que, I hope to God that. And ojalá que is always, always followed by the subjunctive. The key with this is you need to use context clues from the remainder of the sentence. The sequence of tenses won't work here to indicate whether you should use the present or the past subjunctive of these. Try these 2 examples and then check your answers. So here are your answers. Ojalá que no llueva hoy. I hope to God that it does not rain today. So that indicator of today tells me I want to use present subjunctive there. And then ojalá que pasara el examen de ayer. I hope to God that I passed the test yesterday. So it was yesterday, so that indicates I should use the past subjunctive. So ojalá que, always follow. You can kind of take this separate from the rest of things in wedding in terms of the 4 essential questions, because it always is followed by the subjunctive, and you need to read the context to decide whether it should be present subjunctive or past subjunctive. You can kind of forget about the sequence of tenses. But this letter G for ojalá que is a pretty straightforward one. Every time you see this expression, make sure you use the subjunctive.